Hello, everyone, and welcome. Thank you for joining. My name is Dan Giordano. I run marketing at Checkly, and I am joined today by Maria de Antón, who is our product manager and who leads our newest initiative, which is what we're going to talk today, Playwright Check Suites.
Okay, so what are we going to cover today? First, Playwright Check Suites are now generally available, and this is the newest check type in Checkly. And they're the way in which you can run Playwright natively in production, and we'll see about it during the webinar. Then we're also covering how are they different from browser checks, when should you use them, like why do you care about them, and in which cases do you want to use a Playwright check? Because at this point, you should be, wait, why is it different and why do I care about it? And this is what we're going to cover. And you should also hear about why I am and we are so excited about them. And let's just start in the beginning, right? If you already use browser checks, you know that they revolutionize monitoring. They're 10x everything else that it's out there in the market, and they let you do your user journeys across 22 plus locations, plus private locations, so that you can confirm that your critical user journeys, either login, sign up, checkout, whatever that is, those are properly monitored from these different locations. But the reality of this is that this wasn't Playwright native, and they were limits, right? Like when you were looking very closely with a big lens, you would notice that there are some things fully grayed out in here that we didn't support. So we went back to the drawing board and we decided to go all in and commit with Playwright. We truly love it, and it was very, very frustrating for me to read people that wanted to use Playwright's features and they couldn't with us. So we built Playwright Check Suites from the ground up to bring this native Playwright experience across your development workflows. What does this mean effectively is that you have access to the full Playwright feature set. This is all your projects, either multi-browser, like you get Chrome, Firefox, WebKit, all of the different mobile devices like iPhone that is very famous, all your dependencies and the code that you need to run your test, and a storage state to reuse those logged in scenarios, cookies across your test in a very smooth way. And yes, as I just said, it runs Playwright projects rather than single atomic specs. So these are connected things that you can run. And you can select which user journeys from your test should become scheduled monitors. You can pick a specific file, like you used before with browser checks. You can use several files or pull a project. You can even use tags, which was another common feature request, so that you can pull a specific tag test into one suite from different specs, which is fun. And of course, you can define this as usual with our model in as a monitoring definition so that it's in your code and then checked, tested as you deploy and once you move forward. And of course, all your tests and monitoring results are now stored in Checkly with easy access to traces, videos, and all of the things and assets that you need. And yes, Playwright checks are the native way to run Playwright in the cloud. But I'm not only going to tell you, I'm going to show you, because this is how you actually get to see it. This is a demo. Oh, sorry. This is a demo repository that we have built for you to try out. So you're more than welcome to clone it now or afterwards when you see the webinar, and has several different examples. But the first thing that you need to see is that this is, of course, a demo repository, but it's a Playwright test suite. And as such, we'll run npx Playwright tests, and it's running 7 tests using 6 workers because my computer is this big. And you can see that they come from the different specs that I have here on the left side. And this is Playwright doing its thing locally. Taking a little bit longer than I would expect, but I will get there. And once it's done, you can do this. We're gonna now use Checkly to confirm that this same setup from my suite will work on Checklist Cloud. And for this, what I'm going to do is npx checkly, and we developed a brand new command to help ease your onboarding. And this command is pw/test. With pw/test, you test the whole suite in Checkly. Let's look at it. It's the same one, but we're bundling the parts of your code that we need to run your tests. And then from a remote environment in the cloud, we're testing against the URLs and the places that you tell us to do. As you can see, it's now running the 7 tests using one worker. As you know, Playwright, we use the capacity underneath as much as possible, no matter if it uses one or several workers, and right in the storage. And this is my monitoring dashboard, but what I'm running is a test. So we need to look into test sessions to see this. So we see it running here. It's uploading the artifacts. These are my traces for the 7 tests and everything else that goes in. And I can see it in here as well. And it ran from North Virginia, US East 1, and here it is with the 7 tests that passed. You can see here the Playwright test command that we use to run this, which is the basic PW test generic targeting your Playwright config, and we'll get into that in a second. And you can see all of the projects that we run with the summaries. We will also tell you the Playwright version that you were using or that we were using for you. You can use any Playwright version bigger than 140, if I recall correctly. And then for each one of these, you can see the traces as you normally would for quick access. Okay, now that we've done this and that we've confirmed that the whole thing will work, the reality is that probably I don't want all of my Playwright projects to run as a schedule monitor. Of course, this is an example and it only took 30 seconds to run, but I can imagine that most of your suites, if we're lucky, will be between 5 and 20 minutes. I have seen some of them that last longer. So you don't want that in monitoring, right? Like they're sometimes way too long, and the longer they take to run, the longer you will wait for that alert that you really, really care about, right? So we want to make them as small as possible, thinking about the team that will receive the alert on the other end and how quickly do they need to get notified. So in this case, and of course, as I said, this is a very, very simple example. I only want to run the monitoring checks from Firefox, so I'm going to test that. And with PW test, we can accept both Checkly comments, then there's a double dash, and Playwright comments. Your usual Playwright comments are supported as well. So I do a double dash to tell Checkly that now I'm going to input Playwright comments, and I do project Firefox. And it should now run only the project Firefox, which has sadly one spec and one test. But let's look at it coming in test sessions as well. It should be slightly faster, of course, because it was only one test. You can see it refreshing in here, and here it is. Playwright test, project Firefox, and it's run the whole thing as usual. So now that we have it and we've confirmed this works, we're gonna create a check definition for it. Let's do this. So in the same command that I ran before, which is npx playwright test or pw test dash dash, I can do after the pw test dash a checkly command to create a check. It didn't have a checkly configuration file, so it will break one for me, and it will create a new Playwright check construct. What can you see here is that we've chosen a logical ID that is composed of the repository name so that it's easy for you to connect with it. And then it is specifying the Playwright configuration file and where it is. In this case, I'm using the default one, but if you were using something like a smoke or foo or any those environment-related ones, you could reference it here, or even you could reference it at the Playwright check level in here, and tell us for each one of the checks which config you're targeting, which I find very, very cool and exciting. Okay, so what else you can see here is that the test command is npx playwright test with the project's Firefox. And it's going to run in EU Central this time, which is the default location that this command has, but you can tweak it or even add locations to it from the many ones that we have. Let's do, given that I'm in Europe, also EU North one. Okay, I'm going to save that. We also have a frequency. This is in minutes for however long we're going to run it. And what you can see underneath is the global configuration. This means that if for whatever reason I'm defining a new check in here, and it doesn't have a frequency or allocation yet specified, it will default to US East 1 and with a 10-minute frequency. And the last run location is the one that we use when we run PW test or test comments. And now that we've gone through this, and we have our monitoring definition, right? Like this goes in my code and it tells me which test I'm going to run, which is all the ones in Firefox project. We're going to run from these 2 European locations in Checklist Cloud every 5 minutes. And let's do npx checklist deploy. And it tells me, let's go to the monitoring dashboard and tell it yes, of course, I want to continue. And let's see. I should see my new check here in a second, I guess. Oh, here it is. And the first time you deploy a check, it runs and it updates, but sometimes I'm too nervous as the PM behind this. And yeah, you can see here it's running from Frankfurt and Stockholm, which are the reused, like EU Central and EU North that we specified. And it's going to be doing this in a round robin fashion unless I tell it to run these in parallel. And here is my deploy check, and this will now run every 5 minutes, confirming that my checklist homepage runs as it should. Which fun things can you do with this? As I said, you can see the traces, right? And you will see them no matter the example that you have. For example, in this case, I'm doing this across different browsers. So if you were to have a failure, you will see very quickly in which browsers it passed versus in which one fails to isolate the problem that you're having. And you can also see, as before, Playwright version, the number of workers, which you can customize on our end, and the fully parallel, which you can choose to be true or not. And if you were to have any tests that are lower than the threshold that you have set in Playwright, we will also surface them in here so that you can quickly see it. I know how painful it is to get the Playwright traces and the assets in CI, and this simplifies this so much. And now that I got you here, I also want to talk about the metrics and data that you can get on the check overview page, right? Like in this one in here, we're seeing that, of course, the check is passing, but it's running from different locations. I think it's 4. Here you go. These are 4 locations that it's running. And you can see the check durations and the test durations. And in this case, what I'm interested in is knowing how is the docs page performing across the different browsers and locations. So I come in here, I use the Playwright test title, and I'm going to type docs because this is what I want to filter for. So all of the docs tests that we've run over time on the 4 locations are shown in here with their durations. It's really interesting for me to see always that Firefox normally is the flattest one, no matter which customer or internal project I'm looking at. Everyone else you can see when they're, striving to get more resources or data. But yeah, you can see how it's performing in the different locations. And if there were to be something spiky, you would notice it very quickly, like this one here. What were you doing, Firefox, from the deep south? And yeah, you can of course filter for other data or the locations that we have, or even for the check status when you're debugging. And yeah, this is one of my favorite features within these checks, the kind of overview that you get across your tests in the different locations.
And projects
Now,
can be functionally grouped as well, Maria, right? So it
yes,
does.
let me show you. Maria's team. So for example, in here, and this is something that you can do from your Playwright configuration, right? Like when you have dependencies like this one, it will tell it that there is one project that needs to run before the others. In this case, there is a setup that logs into Checkly. Then there is the Chromium project that checks that the home dashboard loads, that the home page that manages also loads, our test sessions page, and the traces one, and observability traces. And if all goes well, it will run the cleanup. In this case, the project that I'm pulling to run this, and you can see this in my test command, is Chromium. And given that Chromium has the dependency of setup and likely has a cleanup and a teardown and cleanup, it's running the whole thing. Let's look at it so that we can see it. Here it is. So there is a setup and has a specific teardown that is cleanup. Cleanup is doing a test match with the cleanup.ts files that I have. And then we have Chromium, Firefox, and iPhone 13. But given that I've only did this so that it works on Chromium, we're ignoring Firefox and iPhone 13 setups in this check. And yeah, this is the pipeline that then when you have it running, you can see that it's running. One is pegged, that one is storing the cookies. You can actually see it in logs or as it's running. Of course, we're reducting the sensitive environment variables that you will add to us. We're even proactively reducting things that may look like secrets as much as we can. And yes, this is how you connect and build it in a pipeline. To me, it's the most fun Playwright feature that a ton of people are using. And in some cases, I find that people use this with a storage state and across their tests. And it can do this and a lot more. Like it's super fun, like a matrix that you can play with. And which things are interesting and I haven't covered. If you look, and let's go back at the Playwright test that we created together, which is now a check running the Firefox one, you will see, not on this one, my apologies, on the first one, that when we start the check run, we're attempting to download the cache, and then the cache is done. What is it talking about? Well, the biggest thing about Playwright Check Suites besides the native Playwright integration is that you choose your runtime. You know better than anybody else which dependencies your code needs to run both in production and when you're testing. So you're telling us, well, through your package log or your package JSON file, which are the dependencies that we need to install to make your environment. With the list of dependencies, we make a hash in your account. And every time we receive a check, this one or a different one that has exactly the same dependencies, we pull that same cache so that the environment is created super quickly, which you can see here. It took less than a minute to download the cache and to make it available. What this means effectively is that if you then change your package JSON, run your npm install, and update your dependencies, the first run will take a tiny bit longer because we're recreating that environment from scratch, but then it will be available for you every other run. There is also yeah, there's also one thing that you can do with Checkly, and you can see that there's a test command, but to create the environment, we make a fair choice, right? We support npm, pnpm, and yarn. And depending on your log file, we will identify it and use the right install command for your dependencies. But in some cases, and don't get me wrong, I've seen this often, you will have some fancy, I don't know, pm install command on your version that you're normally running when you're running your Playwright project. So this is where you want to put it. In this case, we will run exactly this as you tell us to with your dependencies. And yeah, this is something that I really like. Of course, I
Yeah,
like
we actually had a question
yeah.
about starting a web server inside a test as well, which kind of goes alongside with the build step. But can you use a web server command inside your Playwright check and start a server?
Uh, yes, you can, but you won't be able to do it in a headed mode so that you can see it, right? Like this is a remote headless environment where you're running things. So if it's headed, the browser will crash. But if it's not headed and you're starting it out, it will work like a charm. Same for fake devices or any, yeah, QR scanning or things that you're doing,
Okay, awesome.
of course. Then other than this, I wanted to show you, of course, that in Checkly we dog food our product. Well, we have more than 300 checks on our end, and we're using Playwright Check Suites extensively, right? Like this was massive for our front end team, and we're the heaviest, or we've been the heaviest users since we started in alpha. And honestly, the team loves it, right? One thing that I normally explain to people is that we have a mission critical check that goes and confirms that our login flow is working. But then when any of these browser check tests and check with the test is running, what it does is authenticating through the API so that we don't rate limit ourselves. And this setup I have seen in several customers, and it's come very handy because what you want is to have the cookie that then you reuse in your tests as quickly as possible. But you don't want to be hammering your sign
Your
up
login
with all of
page.
your, yeah, because then even if you have the right gating so that you know that this is from Checkly and not our synthetic users, you still want to keep it as healthy as possible. So yeah, we have a check that runs every 2 minutes that confirms that the sign up page and login are working. But these other checks that are running every 5 minutes, or in some cases every 1 minute, depending on which they are using an API to reuse the storage state and then reuse it across tests.
Yeah, and
And
speeds up the test as well. Obviously doing the login, you can see it was
yeah,
490 milliseconds, which is much faster than logging in yourself.
yes.
All right, awesome. We actually have another question. Do we
Mm.
want to cover it now?
Yeah, sure.
All right. Can we use custom variables during testing? For example, I would like to use random email while filling up a form during a check. I'm guessing the question is maybe different variables from a testing and monitoring perspective.
Yes. So I think I have an example in here. Let's look at the examples. If not, but we can send you one afterwards. But basically, you can use different environment variables depending on what you're using, on even the same environment variable defined with different values for each one of the checks. Let me see, because maybe it wasn't this example. But yes, you can absolutely use environment variables. The one thing that doesn't support the environment variables yet locally is pwtest, but if you have them configured in Checkly as environment variables, we will pick them up, right?
Awesome. Yeah, that's actually great. Storage
Yeah.
state. All right. Another question. Can we do Yeah, this is a great question, and I think there's a couple of ways to actually answer it, but can we do a combination of checks? Example, fill up a form in a browser check and then validate, or Playwright check, and then validate through API that it was filled correctly.
Mm, yes, but I would do this all
All
in
in Playwright.
specs, all
Yeah,
in
yeah.
Playwright in specs, right? Like this is the biggest difference between our multi-step checks and the browser ones, right? Like browsers let you use page, and multi-step we're only using API, but both are powered by Playwright with limited features. In this case, you're coding your thing in Playwright, you're setting the dependencies as you want, so that one goes first and then the other, like and validating in these stages. And then you can have as many as you want. But yeah, it will be one is peg, or even one test does it, and then another one that runs it. Yeah.
Yes, totally agreed. I was going to say the idea is that now this stays within your Playwright Check Suite completely, and you can write that total validation natively in Playwright. All
Yes.
right.
Yes,
Let's
there's
hop.
also, yeah, visual regression with the snapshots and all of the other assets that Playwright supports, right? So I like to think of it of as how do you want to do it and what's the best way to do it, of course, for your setup, your alerting, and your team. But it's fun. Yeah. Um, yeah, if there are no more questions, I will go back to.
Yeah, perfect. And then we can come back at the end.
Yeah. So yeah, as I said, Playwright Check Suites are running Playwright without constraints, like multiple browser support, mobile device emulation, custom dependencies, private dependencies. There's documentation on how to do that. Basically, you tell us the npm token as a secret or the information that you need, and we will use that to fetch the private dependencies and run them as well. There's, of course, multi-spec support, test level timeouts, retries, shared storage, the usual visual regression, the traces that you love from Playwright in Checkly as well. And yeah, how much do Playwright check suites cost? So in browser checks, we set a limit of 2 minutes, and we were billing these at $1,004. And in Playwright Check Suite, we're moving to a time-based consumption model. So as long as your check lasts less than 30 seconds, it will cost the same as a browser check, and it will increase as you use more duration of these checks. The limit has also gone higher. I think we typed in here 900 seconds. If you cannot convert that, that is 15 minutes. And if you're on an enterprise plan, we can also do longer. You just got to talk with us for that. And yeah, with this, I'm have some final questions because, as you know, I am the product manager behind this feature and these checks, and we're still working on them. And I'm curious on which package manager do you use? Are you using npm, pmpn, or yarn? If you're using Node, Ban, or Deno, I've seen Dan use as package manager and runtime. So I'm curious on that one because we have a few requests, but probably not enough yet. And if you're using workspaces in a big mono repo, that's something that we're not supporting without workarounds right now, but we will very soon. And we're testing this actively. So if you're using workspaces and you want to give this a try, please let us know because we're looking for people that are interested on setting up these correctly. And I don't know if there is anything that I'm missing, Dan.
I don't think so, but we do have one more question.
Okay.
All right, and this is, I think, an easy one, but I'll still give it up for you. All right, so, and I don't mean that about the question, but I think the answer is, are variables, okay, predefined? This is kind of a follow along to the one before, or can they be dynamic, like a UID or a timestamp?
Hmm. So when you're defining variables in here, these are fixed ones, not dynamic. But if you're doing this and managing these ones within your test or even within your checkly config, which is TypeScript, we will manage it like this. Laura from our support team has a very nice example handy. So even if you type in intercom and ask for this, it will send it right away.
All right, awesome. And that would be like you could do, yeah, something like a new date or something in a test, right? And you could just define
Yeah.
that in the Playwright TypeScript and then it'll be fine.
Yes. Yes, you could also, yeah, have different ones for different environments and things like that.
Exactly. All right, awesome.
Yeah, I
Um,
think sky's the limit.
exactly,
But
exactly.
Playwright
And that
unblocks
really
so
is
many things. Yeah.
that is like almost the point, right? Is now anything that you see in Playwright, there's really no big gotcha moment behind, hey, does this work with Checkly? It's now completely native.
Yeah.
All right, great. And then
Yeah,
I
if you
think we're
have
good
some
on
more
questions.
questions,
So no, we have
I'm
oh,
wait.
all right, we do. Scaling. How many Playwright workers can we run in parallel today? And I think it's actually around more test suites than monitoring.
Hmm. So you can set whatever number you want in there. We benchmark this ourselves, and what we found is that most of the suites will be most performant with one or two workers. If they have a shared login step, one is recommended because of the way that Playwright right now is splits
Does
this up
async.
and that we handle this, right? Because it will do that shared step twice and then split it across the test. So depending on your speed, you would actually benefit from one workers instead of two because it will parallelize as much as it can. Even if you use fully parallel true, we will inherit that and you will run it as quickly as possible. And yeah, then as to the limit of how many specs or tests you can fit in, it will depend on what they're doing and how big they are, right? I have
And how
seen,
long they run.
yeah, I've seen people with API ones that had like 400 or 500 tests in it, but they were API ones that went like this, right?
Yeah, yeah,
But
exactly.
then, yeah, on our end, on the testing side, we're using a lot less so that these are performant and very quick, right? And yeah, if you have more questions, type them in because I have a surprise for you. And maybe you wonder, but what about local test runs? What happens with those? Like the Checkly UI is great, and we really like it to the bug. But yeah, you may have suspected it, but the Playwright Reporter from Checkly is now free in open beta. You can hop in to the npm package. The instructions are there. You need your API key and your user account to identify yourself with us. And that's it. You can run npx playwright test and see the results in Checkly in that test session area that I showed you before, coming in from your local setup.
Amazing.
And I'm so
Next,
excited. It closes the circle so well. So yeah, if you had any other questions, please go ahead.
Maria, thank you so much for hopping on today and showing us Playwright Check Suites. It was great.
Of course, I'm excited to see how everyone gets on. I think once it clicks, what I'm seeing is that people are super fast at adopting. So yeah,
Agreed, agreed, agreed. And thank you everyone for joining us today. Again,
thank you, everyone. Take care.
have a good
Bye.
one.